Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second half of our doubleheader on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. This is 108 Inches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, off the Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by George Eichhorn.
George. Good to be here, talking baseball, World Series time. Love it, Scott.
And the newest person to our network, Jake Walker, a young guy that I saw at Florida Atlantic, who I know the potential is unlimited. And after what he did on the Sports Exchange Wednesday night, Jake did nothing to make me look bad. That's for sure. Welcome back, Jake.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here to talk some baseball.
How did you feel about your first act on Wednesday night on the Sports Exchange?
I thought it went pretty smooth for my first time. I was kind of nervous, but I thought I kept my composure. I did pretty well.
I know you did. That's why you're back. And again, I always like to feel if there's a guy who's a really self-conscious individual, tries hard, gives me the best shot. And I knew that when I saw you over at Florida Atlantic when they took on Monmouth. We're glad you're a part of our team. And last but not least, KR, I've known you forever, Lombardia.
How you doing, Scott? Good to be here tonight.
All right. Well, KR and George are on double duty tonight. But before we go any further, we'll just let everybody know the 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com or participate in the chat room. 2 ways of doing it. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find us on Twitter and X at Tribune South. Candy Ebling's behind the scenes. I have a new book coming out any day now called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. And also tomorrow night, programming note, the Motor City Madmouth show debuts on this network. That'll be at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Georgia Eichhorn and I will do the very first show. But that said, we'll be talking predominantly World Series with one managerial opening that was filled. And we're going to talk about the team that is definitely classified as the ultimate road warriors. And that's the Texas Rangers. At last I heard, they were leading Arizona, I believe, 10-0. So I was looking at that score. So you guys can give me updates as the show goes on. But the Texas Rangers, obviously, the most in postseason history. They have won 9 straight road games this postseason. But the task will be challenging, losing Max Scherzer and slugger Adolis Garcia, though you wouldn't know by the numbers tonight, as Garcia is suffering from tightness on his left side. So, George, what are your thoughts about the Texas Rangers? I know they're looking good tonight, but you can't.
I tell you what, yeah, 10-1. They did score 1 run, Arizona, but it's 10-1. I tell you what, they look really, really tough, really hungry. Of course, that franchise is way overdue to win a championship. And I don't think even with those injuries that, it's going to stop them, because obviously they're hitting the heck out of the ball today. They're really going through that, mowing that bullpen down. Arizona's got to be worn out right now. But, yeah, I mean, you talk about road warriors. It's unbelievable. I mean, for a team to do that in the postseason, it's just incredible. And Texas, it may not be winning many games or any right now at home, but boy, oh boy, they are really playing good. They got their sights right on that World Series championship, Scott.
What do you think, Jake?
I mean, Adolis Garcia was the driving force along with Corey Seager, but I don't think his injury is going to stop them from winning this World Series. I mean, I'm watching the game right behind me. It's 10-1. I think, I don't think the Diamondbacks have the pitching to hang with them. And as hot as Ketel Marte is, I don't know if they can keep up. I don't think they can.
Okay. Carolyn Bardia.
I like the Rangers. I really like Bochy. He's an old guy, not as old as me, but he's an old guy. Plays the game sort of the old way, and they got some players. Corey Seager is, to me, the best shortstop in the big leagues. I mean, he hits with power. He's a great fielder. Garcia's a stud. They got a hell of a club. They can pitch, they can play defense, and most of all, they swing the bat. And 10-1 tonight, I'm not watching it, but 10-1, I mean, it's going to be hard for the Diamondbacks to come back down 3-1. It can be done, but it's gonna be hard. And they go back to Texas, so it's gonna be really tough.
Another little interesting footnote on this series. This is the first World Series with both stadiums having a roof. George, I know you've always been a person that likes to have opening days played in these dome stadiums, but now you actually have a World Series where there's no way you're going to lose one. So what are your thoughts about this, George?
I really like it, Scott, because the weather can get dicey, and obviously if teams like New York or Boston or Detroit or somebody up in the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, or the East were playing, then it could be awful chilly and rainy too. And there was even some snowflakes going around here in Michigan today. So really, I think it's good. It's good because the fans can be comfortable, the players can be comfortable, and to me, it doesn't take that much away because the games are all night games too. Remember, in the old days, they were day games, and it was nice to have the sunshine and playing those games outside. But now all these World Series games are at night. Granted, some of them are starting in daylight if you're a West Coast team or something like that, or a Southwest team. But I think it's good for baseball. I think it's a good thing. I do cherish those moments when it was nice out and the World Series was contested, but you just have no control over the weather. So it could be really crappy at times. I look back, guys, to 1968, and the Tigers had a terrible game on a Sunday afternoon against St. Louis. It was raining like crazy, but the commissioner did not want to stop the game, and the Tigers ended up losing that game, but won the series in '68. But yeah, no, I like the dome stadiums. I think this will be good for them.
Okay, Jake.
I like the dome stadiums as well, and particularly Arizona. I know the ball travels a little bit farther in Arizona. It's easier to hit home runs in Arizona.
Right.
And I love seeing the offense in the World Series. So, and like George said with the weather, I think it's easier with the weather for the fans and the players to be comfortable. So I like the dome stadiums for both teams.
Yeah, you're referring to Chase Field, right?
Yes, Chase Field.
Right, okay. KR?
I like the dome stadiums because of the late. I don't like it during the regular season except here in Florida because it's so hot. Right. Like if the Rays played outside, they wouldn't draw flies in June or July and August or May even because it's so hot. But yeah, it makes it a lot more comfortable for the fans. The dome stadiums. It's not really. Ground balls are always going to be true. There's not going to be very many bad hops, things like that. But for comfort for everybody, it's much better to play inside.
Okay. Well, I mean, like you say, we know about it here in Florida. Even when I have to deal with it at Lone Depot Park, because you have the air conditioning running at all times. So, yeah. And when you're in our neck of the woods, I mean, KR, you're in Tampa, and Jake and I are here in South Florida. We know how well the humidity. I can't remember. I think I've only seen one or two games over at Lone Depot Park that with the roof open, and it is a different ball game down here when it is open. So, all right. Well, we're moving along really well. We'll stay on the World Series theme a little bit longer. Arizona Diamondbacks designated hitter outfielder Tommy Pham is a generous guy. The 35-year-old had a chance to become the first player in World Series history to apply for 5 game against the Texas Rangers on Saturday, but he opted to give up that chance to teammate Jace Peterson so he could step to the plate for the first time in the Fall Classic. George, what are your thoughts about that gesture?
I thought it was very kind and very nice gesture. I mean, there's a situation where you try to get all the guys in the lineup. KR, you're a former coach and some of these things too, but you're trying to get as many people exposed and obviously the opportunity to play, especially in the postseason. And it's tough. I mean, I remember some of our teams here in Detroit, trying to get everybody in. Sparky Anderson was really good about that when he managed the Tigers. Everybody had a spot, everybody had a position on that roster. But when it gets down to the playoffs and obviously to the World Series, it's a little bit harder to get these guys in. But no, I think it was awesome. I really do. I think Pham did a nice job with that, and I'm really happy that he decided to do that.
Well, they're going to platoon lefty, righty, and stuff like that. But now they're going to play the guys that have to play to win. They're not giving there's no breaks in a 7-game series. You can rest next month.
Yeah, True.
Right. I think it was a great, team player move. It was humble by Tommy Pham to do that. But like KR said, you got to play your best guys in the World Series, especially when you're down. It's going to be 3. I think it's going to be 3-1 after this game. So going forward, I think they got to play the best 9 they got.
Yeah.
Well, the amazing part about the series is we have seen some lopsided affairs. I believe. So, I think, Jake, I'm trying to remember. You had one that was, you have all the scores in front of you. I don't have it in front of me, but.
The Diamondbacks won game 2, 9-1.
Okay, right. And now this one here is, I believe, 10-1?
Yeah, right now it's 10-1 in the bottom of the 5th.
So when you have lopsided scores, believe it or not, when you have one team or the other, then you're able to get some of those other players at least in advance so they can tell their kids, grandchildren, whatever, that they got to participate in the Fall Classic for sure. Yeah, you know what? Like I said, Tommy Pham to me is 35 years old, and anytime you can do something that positive, to me, it's unbelievable. And for Jace Peterson, it'll be something he never forgets for sure. All right, really, the final topic of the night, we only had a few things we wanted to talk about, and then I'll let you guys incorporate some things if you want to. The San Francisco Giants officially hired Bob Melvin as their manager, giving him a 3-year deal to return to the Bay Area through 2026. He brings 20 years plus as a manager and coach. His record is 1,517 and 1,425 with a winning percentage of .516. So, George Eichhorn, how will Bob Melvin do?
I think he'll do well. I've always wanted to see him become a manager. Obviously, he's from the Detroit Tigers system, worked his way up. He through the minor leagues, coaching ranks, and managerial ranks. He's not in the upper atmosphere, as I say, with Bruce Bochy and with Dusty Baker and managers like that, but he's darn near close. Bob Melvin's done a nice job. And he's had some bad teams, and let's be honest. I mean, some of his teams have been bad, so obviously that affects his total win-loss record. He doesn't have as outstanding a record as maybe some of these other guys that I mentioned, but I think Melvin will do well. I think San Francisco made a nice choice. I feel bad for another ex-Tiger, Gabe Kapler, who lost his job, of course, and he used to be part of the Tigers. And it's amazing how these coaches and managers move around, and it really is. In a way, I think it's preventing some younger managers from maybe making it in. But when you got guys with talent, the big league guys, they're very well treasured. And, we know that with guys like Tony La Russa, Buck Showalter, and other managers we've seen that have hung around a long time. But no, I think it's a good move. Melvin still has a lot of good years as a manager, and I think San Francisco made the right hire.
All right, I'll go to Carol Lombardia.
I don't like recycling managers. Bob Melvin's a little different. But they've recycled managers and get the young guys in there to give them a chance. Guy can't win. And it all comes down to talent. Is your front office going to pay the money? What Kevin Cash has done at Tampa is amazing. With the pay he's got, the payroll he's got is just it's terrible. But I think they really do a great job in scouting at Tampa. They probably have one of the best minor league programs in the big leagues. I think they were named the best minor league program for years. But I think sometimes when you name a manager, I was a little bit shocked when Kevin got the job at Tampa. I thought I thought they would just recycle somebody else, and I'm glad they didn't. Will Joe Madden get another shot? That's my question. He's 69, 70. Will he get another shot? I don't know.
Yeah, I wondered about that. Now that I think about it, you brought it up. Joe Madden, all right, let's just take this. All right, you know what, Jake, go ahead. And I want to talk about Joe Madden. What are your thoughts there, Jake?
I remember Bob Melvin's days with the A's. I thought he was a great manager. I wasn't a real big fan of this stop in San Diego. Granted, not all of it was his fault. There was some turmoil with the front office, but I think it was a good move for the Giants. I think Bob Melvin's a solid manager, and I think he's going to do a good job.
Yeah, you know what? I want to double down on what you just said, Jake, okay? That it's not like the Giants didn't have familiarity with him being across the bay, playing Moneyball, and he still managed to win with that group. You know, when you're winning with a limited budget, and Bob Millen's finding a way to do it, the Giants aren't afraid to spend money. They're not afraid to spend money. Now, I don't know what happened in San Diego. I think you're right, though, Jake, where there might have been it might have been contentious with the front office. But I think the fact of the matter is in with the Giants, they excuse me, they have a lot of respect for him to begin with. So it's not like they didn't know who they hired for sure. So now, KR brings up an interesting point. Okay, let's talk about Joe Madden, George. There's a fair amount of openings out there. Where do you think Joe Madden could wind up in this hiring cycle?
Well, that's an interesting observation. I mean, he had a hell of a year with the Cubs when he won the World Championship. And I tell you what, it doesn't look like the Yankees are going to make a change. I thought maybe they might, but it doesn't look that way. But not to be undone. There's a lot of other opportunities. I personally would still like to see him in the American League. I mean, I admire his work. I mean, he's a good Polish guy, and we honored him one year. If people don't know, I'm involved with the Polish Sports Hall of Fame, and Joe was our Excellence in Sports recipient after he won the championship with the Cubs. And I do think that there's a lot of good coaching still managing left in him. I'm not quite sure, though, where it would be. I don't know for sure. I would only be a guess, but I would still like to see him in the American League. That's just my personal opinion. He could go anywhere, obviously, with the talent that he's got. But I don't have anybody really in particular, but there are teams that are going to be obviously looking to make changes. If they don't this offseason, then maybe if they start out weekly in 2024 season, but you don't wish that on anybody. But he can still do it. He can still manage. He can still relate to these players up today. I know he can.
Oh yeah, he's not an old-fashioned guy.
Right.
In a way he is, but in a way he's not. How they dress up when they get on a plane and things like that. I mean, he's pretty cool with the younger players.
What do you think, Jake?
So, with the managerial openings this season, I would say I would like to see him either with the Padres or the Astros, since Dusty Baker is no longer there. I think he's good at managing big personalities and superstars. He's done it many times before. I know it didn't work out with the Angels, but the Angels haven't really worked out in years with any manager they've had.
That's true.
So I don't really think that's on him. But I would like to either see him with the Padres or the Astros.
You know what, Jake? Here's the thing. The Astros makes too much sense. It really does.
It does.
And you know what we saw with Dusty Baker? One other young manager I didn't mention that I should mention because I dealt with him directly is Skip Schumacher. This guy here did a heck of a job with the talent that he has going behind Don Mattingly, and he got him to the playoffs. So I want to make sure I got Skip out. But what you just said there, Jake, go ahead.
I actually was thinking about Skip Schumacher earlier when you guys were talking about young managers getting hired. I thought that was a great hire by the Marlins, getting a fresh face in there, fresh new coaching staff. I think it really shifted the culture of the organization.
Turned out pretty well. And you know who's on? I know K.R. Lombardi, being a Tampa guy, I had an opportunity to catch up with Jody Reed and ended up doing an interview with him, which you can find on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. I go back to, I ended up doing a story on him when I worked for the Tampa Tribune, KR. And you know what? Here's a guy. Didn't he play out of Brandon High School, if I remember right?
Let me tell you a good story about Jody. I was coaching HCC, and we had signed Mitch Sione and Johnny Diaz, and Lou Garcia was our head coach. And Lou says, I don't know about Jody Reed. I think he's too small. Plus, I got these other guys coming in, blah, blah, blah. So he didn't recruit him. So Jody went to Manatee, made All-American in junior college. Went to Florida State. But he's a little too small to play at Florida State. Made All-American at Florida State. Got drafted by the Red Sox, and was an all-star. So yeah, he was so much better than what he everybody thought he was. He was very much an overachiever. Not a very big guy, probably 5'7", 5'8", I guess. maybe 175 when he was pumping iron, but he turned into a hell of a player. I mean, how many years did he play in the big leagues? 10,
He
11?
played like 10 years there.
Yeah.
I remember when he was playing for the Winter Haven Red Sox is where I caught up with him.
Yep.
And then I ended up interviewing him over at El Lopez Field. So, but yeah, you know what, Jake? You made so much sense. I don't know about the Padres as much as I would the Astros. I just don't know why. And I'll tell you why I say that, Jake, is because you just got done with Dusty Baker. And if you're Jim Crane, wouldn't you want to go with a guy like Joe Madden, who has the same veteran presence that Dusty Baker? But what you said, Jake, makes just too much sense. It just does.
With the Astros, I definitely agree. I would say it makes more sense with the Astros than the Padres. Like
No question about it. Yeah, I just, I'm with you all the way.
And Joe would be better with veterans.
Right.
And he's got a lot of them there. I do believe in my mind the Astros window is still open to win with the players that they have.
Oh, absolutely.
Just go out there and have that veteran manager. I mean, you went from AJ Hinch to Dusty Baker, not only calm things down, but won a World Series. And now the next move is going to be very critical. And that's where that veteran manager comes into play. So,
yep.
Makes too much sense.
So
just in case you're joining us, folks, with 108 Stitches Baseball Talk being broadcast around the world, the audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Chat room's one way to do it. Send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X at Tribune South. Candy Ebling's Behind the Scenes. My book coming out any day now is called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. And, of course, tomorrow night on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network, George Eichhorn and I debut the Motor City Mad Mouse Show, which will be an interview show one-on-one, talking about people in and out of the sports world. So look forward to having you join us. We'll be developing that show as time goes on, and I expect it to get greater exposure after the first of the year, but we want to get it started. It's something we've talked about, so it coincides with the proper release about the book. All right, so George, any things you want to add about the Great American Pastime that we haven't spoken already?
The most recent ballot came out, Scott, as you know, for the Hall of Fame, and it's called their contemporary ballot. And listen to these four guys. Now, there's no saying any one of these four guys is going to go in, but we talk about managers, guys, and listen to this list: Jim Leyland, Lou Piniella, Cito Gaston, and Davey Johnson. And out of those four guys, I mean, I'm prejudiced, and I'm obviously going to say Jim Leyland deserves it. But boy, oh boy, if they pick one manager, the Hall of Fame Baseball Writers Association committee, to get into this Hall of Fame, I'd just be curious what you guys think. But boy, oh boy, that's a tough one. It really is. Leyland, 1,769 wins. Piniella, 1,835 wins. Gaston, only 894 wins. And Davey Johnson, 1,372 wins. And, and the World Series titles and All-Star games and league titles they won. I mean, what a group that you're going to pick from. Hopefully, one of those guys is going to get in when they announce the voting on January the 23rd.
I thought that one's a little bit sooner than January 23rd, isn't it? I believe that voting is in December.
Okay, I'm sorry, Scott. You're absolutely right. It's at the baseball meetings in December.
Right, that's what I thought.
Correction, yeah.
No, that's okay. I wouldn't even venture a guess about who I'd put. You know what, Jake? Do you know enough about these managers that you'd want to predict one?
Only Jim Leyland. Well, actually, I did watch a little bit of Lou Piniella, but I would say Jim Leyland would be my pick.
Fair enough. What about you, KR?
Who do you think, Scott?
I want to say Leyland, but you know where the wild card comes into play?
No.
Scott,
who do you think I want?
Well, I know you want Lou Piniella.
Absolutely. He should have been in there many, many, many years ago.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. He's one of the best that ever was. And if people only knew him as well as I do, you'd
Lupinella.
understand.
Well, the one thing about Lupinella is he follows Billy Martin, who his mentor was. We all
Right.
know that because of the
Yeah.
way. Now, I'm saying, and I don't think it'll happen, but if you're looking to break barriers in the Hall of Fame for managerial spot, the only one that would make sense, and I'm not saying it'll happen, I'm just making a point, and just a point. Cito Gaston, to me, would be the guy you would do it because I believe he's the first African American manager to win a World Series, if I remember right, and he won it back to back with the Blue Jays. So
Yes. Yeah.
Cito Gaston would be a good choice. I know a lot of us like Leland. I like Lou Piniella. And what people have to understand, what Lou Piniella did is he won 116 games, I believe, with the Seattle Mariners.
Yep.
And I still believe that's the all-time record for regular season, albeit they didn't win a World Series. But Lou Piniella, to me, is revered in the Pacific Northwest as much as he is in the Tampa Bay area.
I think Leland is a great manager too. I know somebody that coached with Leland. Chuck Hernandez coached with Leland up in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Chuck actually played for me in the summer of his senior year, and he talks about Jim Leland in a saintly way about his knowledge of the game. And Jim actually coached third base for the White Sox when Tony La Russa was the manager.
Right.
And I have a funny story about Leland and La Russa. If you want me to tell it, I will. It's really funny.
Yeah, go ahead, because I got one behind you about Leland and La Russa when Leland was 1 year with La Russa with the Cardinals organization before he got the Tigers.
Yeah, well, Jim Leland and what's his name? The other the guy was a catcher. There was a pitching coach.
Gene Lamont, I believe, right?
No, not Gene. I'll remember. Anyway, I'm in South Florida as a pitching coach, and we're playing the White Sox. The first year we played the Yankees, second year we played the White Sox, what they call the Gold Shield Foundation game. And Tony came in, and Leland was coaching third base. So Al Lopez came and sat in our dugout. And Al and my grandfather were very, very good friends. I'm talking about like this, friends. Right. So Tony came over from their dugout and sat, because Tony went to the University of South Florida.
Right.
Didn't play baseball, he's already pro ball. So Tony came and sat. I've known Tony since I was a little boy, and I've known Al Lopez since I was a little boy. So he came and sat, and Leland's coaching third base. So we're having conversations in the dugout, and Robin Roberts is the head coach, and I'm sitting with Tony and Al, and they both know me since I was a little boy, and especially Al, because he's my grandfather's friend. So they're beating us to death as usual, pro ball club. And Leland's coaching third, and he whistles into the dugout, and Tony's sitting next to me, and Leland goes, "Skip, what do you want to do?" And Tony says, "What, you can't coach against college kids without my help?" And he said it in front of everybody. And it was, I said, Tony, that was brutal to embarrass him in front of our kids. He goes, he can take a joke. He can take a joke. But Leland put his head down like, "Gee, you embarrassed me in front of, 30 kids from college." But that's Tony for you. But Leland was, I think Leland's one of the best baseball guys there is.
Well, I've gotten to know Leland real well in my years, and it's funny how you talk about Chuck Hernandez. We go back to the days of the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, and you know what? Remember when I was at that event in Tampa where we were talking about the American Legion and all that?
Right.
And I'll never forget when I saw Chuck, and then I saw him when he was with the Mets. That I had time to talk to him then. And I always joked around with Chuck, even when he was with the Tigers, because one thing that you're going to find out, Jake, is when you're in the baseball world. As much as it's a big world, it's a small world. It really is. You haven't seen anybody I remember this. You got to get.
Well, Chuck was on the ground, not the ground floor. He was a second generation guy that learned the circle change. The first guy was Gary Nolan with the Reds. Remember him? Gary invented that pitch, and he taught it to Chuck's brother-in-law, Nadi Contreras, who was a pitching coach in the big leagues. And then Chuck taught it. I didn't know it. I didn't know how to throw it till that summer. And I'm a pitching coach, and I don't know how to throw that. And Chuck showed me how to do it. He goes, "It's still pretty new." It was 1978. And they had been throwing it probably since 69, but only the Reds. And then and then they started teaching it to everybody else. But the Reds were the first team to throw that circle change, which is, if you've never seen it, from behind the plate or behind the mound, it is nasty. It looks like a spitball. The bottom falls out of it. It's just a nasty pitch.
Well, let me add this about Chuck. Okay, the big running joke that we always had was when he was with the Fort Lauderdale Yankees. He said, "You had the best move to first base that I have ever seen in my life." And what he would say, "Yeah, when you're not any good, you need to use it a lot more." That's the kind of a sense of humor he had. But Chuck and I again, I saw him play, when he was young, and I've never seen a guy with that good of a move to first base. But then again, he has such a great sense of humor. Well, I wasn't very good. I had to use it.
Yeah.
And left-handers, as everybody knows, you being a pitching coach knows that if you find a halfway decent left-hander or a good left-hander, the chance of them getting up to the big leagues faster. And the one name I'll mention that comes to mind is Ray Fontenot many years ago, who ended up getting there quicker, and he was playing for the Fort Lauderdale Yankees. George, you had something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to add one bit of information. I'll tell you what, when I cover Jim Leyland, I want to give you an example of the respect that this man has. It was the 2012 World Series in Detroit. And Scott, I don't know if you remember these two ladies, but the Major League Baseball had Katie, she represented the National League, and Phyllis worked with the American League. And these two ladies in public relations, they were employees for a long, long time, Major League Baseball in New York City. Well, they were both in town for the World Series. And when Leland saw Phyllis, he gave her the biggest hug. And I just, that meant something to me. I could see that bond, how respected Leland was. Phyllis is an employee of Major League Baseball, and she's representing the American League. And then when Katie came out the next day, they had to bring Leland, to the media I'm talking about the post-game press conference. Yeah. And he also gave Katie a big hug. And I that sticks with me, as you guys can tell, because I remember that and how much he's respected.
Well, when Pete Mulry went to go, Pete Mulry was the coach of Tampa Catholic, won 5 state championships, right? He went to visit Chuck in Detroit, and Leland welcomed him into the locker room, and after the game and before, so Pete got to really know Jim, sitting in there with the coaches and talking baseball, and Pete came out of there just blown away. He said, "This guy is one of the greatest baseball guys." I'll tell you about Chuck. His senior year, he'd hurt his arm a little bit. He wasn't pitching. So they were playing somebody. Tampa Catholic was playing somebody. And Pete tells Chuck, "Hey, can you go in there and pitch? But I don't want you to pitch. I just want you to pick the guy off at first base." They had 2 outs, right? So he said, "Sure, coach, I can do that." So he lets him go down to the bullpen faking like he's warming up. Pete calls him in, and he picks the guy off at first base. 1 pitch to end the inning. That's it. That's all Chuck did. And then he brought the other pitcher back in.
I don't know why I believe that, but I really do. Because
Pete told me that story some years ago.
Yeah.
But Pete got to spend time with Jimmy Leland and said, "Buddy, you would love to be with him and talk baseball because nobody knows the game any better than he does."
Well, I've taken a few pictures of Leland. Every time I get an opportunity to pick his brain, I did. He was always good about it. So, unlike my days when I didn't have a camera phone, when I couldn't get Sparky, there were no shortage of Leland pictures. I just wish I would have had one back then.
I'm amazed that Leland's still alive as much as he smokes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we have a young guy by the name of Jake Walker here just absorbing all this. What are you getting from all this stuff from all of us old geezers, Jake?
There's a lot of good stories between Leland and LaRussa, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Had great senses of humor.
I got a young guy here whose broadcasting potential is off the chart, and he's sitting here watching 3 old men talking about the old days. And all right, well, tell me what's on your mind, Jake. Come on, man.
Well, talking about your guys' points with being in the baseball world. When I was in high school, I played against a lot of big leaguers from Broward County, more specifically. I faced Tristan Casas a few times. Mark Vientos played in my area. Jesus Luzardo. I've seen all those guys play in high school. So it's really cool to see them in the big leagues now, especially Jesus playing down in Miami. I get to watch him at Lone Depot. I think it's really cool seeing all those guys in the major leagues. And then when I watched them when I was, in high school, it was really cool.
Well, Jake, where you grew up, like I grew up in Tampa, we played against some great players.
Florida breeds talent, man.
Well, you play 12 months out of the year, and in Tampa, especially if you're a Latin kid, you're born. They give you a bat when you're in the crib. I mean, they put a baseball in the crib with me when I was born. I got a picture of it, and it's just you're going to play baseball or you're going to get thrown. It's just the way it is.
Right.
Yeah, Jesus Luzardo, I've seen him pitch a lot. He's a heck of a pitcher. And to think that the Marlins acquired him in that trade for Arling Marte, I believe it was.
Yes.
From the A's, and then this kid here developed nicely. So that's one of those trades where Miami made out quite well, and again at the hands of the Oakland A's.
Well, talking about the talent down there, it's just amazing. The University of Miami hasn't won a national championship in baseball in 2007, 9, something like that.
Yeah, I remember covering the Canes back when. Who was it? Oh God, Ron Frazier, I think.
When Ron Frazier was there. They were tremendous, and then they were impossible to beat. I mean, he won 3 national championships. Well, Jim, what's his name?
Jim Morris, I believe.
Jim Morris
won one, but they should win it every other year. I mean, they've got more talent in that place in those 3 counties than the man on the moon.
Oh,
FAU's good at baseball. That guy was. I think the guy retired a few years ago.
Kevin Cooney. He's a good friend of mine.
What Cooney? Great coach.
He's a really good friend of mine.
Great. Did he retire, Scott?
Yeah, he did retire. Of course, I believe Jim McCormick's done a good job, but then his wife is the assistant athletic director and PR person. But Kevin Cooney is a really close friend of mine.
Good baseball coach. Good baseball man.
Yeah.
I will say the only problem with the Canes is that a lot of their top recruits just end up getting drafted. So, the huge talent they do get.
They did when Frazier was there, and I asked him what he did, and he had a contingency plan. He would send kids to junior college and tell them after the June draft, I may sign you, because you can hide them in junior college because they can sign up. You sign up or back, but you can't go lateral. So Ron would get guys, and I asked him one time when I was coaching, I said, how do you do it? You lose 6 guys at the draft and you bring 6 guys in, you're just as good. He goes, I got a contingency plan. And he explained it to me. Really? And I don't know if he can do that anymore, but he did it.
All these guys.
Ron Frazier was a genius, guys.
All these geniuses find a way to buck the system.
He was a genius.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
And so was Skip Bertman.
Yeah, he's well, of course, didn't he go to LSU?
LSU, yeah. He was supposed to come back. I thought he was coming back to Miami when Ron retired, and they made him an offer he couldn't refuse at LSU money-wise. They got a lot more money at LSU than Miami.
In the Southeastern Conference, what do you expect? I
mean, he was – when he took the job at LSU, there was only one full-time baseball coach in the SEC, and that was Ron Polk at Mississippi State. Everybody else was sort of part-time, and but then Skip took it. If you've ever seen Hold the Rope, it's on ESPN. You need to watch it. It's on ESPN 3 or Plus, but you need to watch Hold the Rope about Skip Bertman, and you will be absolutely amazed at what he did at LSU.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know about him. I mean, of course, I go back to Ron Frazier. Back then I was Jake's age. I probably, would have appreciated it more now than I was too young.
Well, I started coaching when I was 24 years old in college, so at Camp U, and then on to South Florida in the ACC. But I got to know Ron Frazier and Skip pretty well because I picked their brain. I'd stay after the game and talk to them, and I was just absolutely blown away with what they did. Marklight Stadium was the hottest place in college baseball in the 70s.
Which one? I'm sorry. What was that?
Marklight Stadium.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Play them on a weekend series in Marklight. You got 4,000 or 5,000 fans screaming at you. Yeah. Just wild.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what a show it's been here. We got our young guy here getting a history lesson, and we have an opportunity to talk about the World Series. So, Jake, why don't you give us an update on the score? Do you have it in front of you?
Yes, I do. The Rangers are still up 10-1. It's going to be bottom of the 7th right now. Who's up to bat? Thomas is up to bat. I mean, Rangers are just still dominating this game. It doesn't look like they're gonna give this lead up.
Okay, well there you go. Now you have the latest update from Jake Walker. So
thank you.
Well, there you go. So now we give you the World Series with our young up, with Jake giving you the update and a little bit of extra facts to go along with it. So just want to let everybody know that this concludes this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. But before we sign off, George, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm an author. I've come out with a book called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, and there's a link to purchase the book at the bottom of my sports column. I write for Scott in South Florida Tribune and then drill out to the Motor City Tribune. Also, you can see me on many of these shows here on this wonderful network, such as Inside the Pigskin, the Sports Exchange, and Pundit's Pundit, and this wonderful show, 108 Stitches. You can reach me, let's see, gicorn@yahoo.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find me on Twitter or X, whatever they call it, Sand G Sports 99.
Okay, Karen, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Facebook or Instagram.
Okay, and Jake Walker, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
At JWalk729 on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Instagram, Jake_Walker729. And I am working on LinkedIn right now.
And not only are you working on LinkedIn right now, you are a part of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Glad to have you. Just goes to show you that when I go to places like FAU, you can find talent anywhere. And I'm very delighted to have you on board, Jake. You're really a very knowledgeable young guy. Potential is unlimited, and we're glad that you can share all your insights and information with us as well. Now, I don't understand the dog's language in the background. I don't speak that language, but just get it. But anyways, no bow wow tonight, but we'll be bowing out until next edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, which will be next Tuesday night. So meanwhile, on behalf of George Eichhorn, KR Lombardia, and Jake Walker, my name is Scott Morgan, Route to Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We will catch you next week. Have a great week, everybody.
George, is that